Are you a businesswoman who is finding it challenging to get your ideas across and make a point? Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results with Elizabetch Bachman, a podcast dedicated to helping women get the visibility they want, whether making a speech or talking in a meeting. Every week, get valuable lessons from Elizabeth or learn from her roundtable conversations with experts and speakers on how to make a difference, not just a point. On to the show with your host, Elizabetch Bachman.
Hi, and welcome to Speakers Who Get Results. You are about to hear a really interesting interview with Angela Dunz, who is a LinkedIn expert, and she's telling us all sorts of useful things of how we can really use LinkedIn to improve our businesses, improve our personal brand. What's the difference between a company brand and a personal brand? Whether we should change the background pictures in our profile, that's something I've wondered about a lot. And especially, what do you do about those people who connect with you on LinkedIn and then immediately try to sell something? It's very useful information. She's a delight. She's one of the people that my special go-to people when I have LinkedIn questions. Stand by for conversation with Angela Dunz. Hello and welcome to Speakers Who Get Results. This is the podcast where we talk about presentation skills. We interview experts on how to improve our presentation skills, and we talk about all the things that lie behind our presentation skills, such as leadership, visibility, anything that has to do with the craft of live communication. I'm Elizabetch Bachman, your host. And I'd like to invite you, before we begin, to go to our free assessment, www.speakforresultsquiz.com. That's speakforresultsquiz.com, and take our free assessment. Takes 4 or 5 minutes, and there you can see where your presentation skills are great and where you might need a little bit of support. And now I am so happy to have my wonderful friend, Angela Dunz. Angela, welcome to Speakers Who Get Results.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're delighted to have you here. And I'm going to read Angela's. Angela has done many things. She's my go-to person for LinkedIn. She bills herself as the introvert's guide to LinkedIn. And I find that I'm a situational introvert. Fundamentally, I'd be very happy curled up on the sofa with a book and my coffee and maybe a cat at my feet. I could spend my whole life that way, but getting out in business, I can be extroverted in business, but I've learned so much from Angela. She always wonders about, she says, do you feel awkward about self-promotion? She works with coaches and consultants to refine their personal brand, expand their influence, and increase opportunity. She also has been working with businesses, so I know that. So anybody who actually needs to improve their profile on LinkedIn. She has an amazing 10-day challenge, which has helped nearly 100 people. It's brand new, so you've already helped 100 people completely transform their businesses and the way they use LinkedIn. For the last 7 years, she's been working as a LinkedIn consultation coach, trainer, and social media strategist. She's also a former high school rodeo champion, an author, a hiker, and an NFL fan, as long as it's the Green Bay Packers, right?
Yes, go Pack.
All right. And she has an upcoming book called Conversations with Skunks. So I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. But first, let me ask you the dream interview. This is something that all my guests have talked about. If you were to interview somebody from history, who would it be? What would you talk about? And who should be in the audience?
Well, my dream interview, I love this question, by the way, Elizabeth. It's an awesome question. I'm part Viking, mostly Viking. And I'm fascinated by the shield maidens. And recent evidence says that women were generals and queens. They were leaders.
Ah,
And that gender didn't have as much to do with leadership as it does in some cultures. So I'm just massively curious about what their beliefs and their values and their ideas and their gender roles and the way their society was structured, and what women's role was. So I would really love to interview a shield maiden who was also a queen in the Viking society.
that's cool. Who should be listening?
I think everybody should. I think we can all take something away from different perspectives. I'm such a global person. There's just something to learn from every culture. And, they were in a very harsh environment. And I think the shared leadership was a big piece of that.
That's great. That's exciting. Actually, this podcast is a lot of this podcast is an international podcast. So conversing with different cultures and so forth, I think that would be fascinating. That would be fun. I'll come. I've definitely come to that one. So Angela, I've taken classes from you, and I've done a lot to improve my LinkedIn. There's a lot more I could do, but every time I do a little bit more. I've been a little more. You're very patient. Thank you. Very patient with me. I keep coming back. Does LinkedIn really work?
Well, it's a lot of people. Here's what I hear when I go to networking events. Oh, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a LinkedIn consultant. And the first thing I hear from people is, oh my God, don't look at my LinkedIn profile. So people put up a LinkedIn profile because somebody told them they should. Oh, you have to be on LinkedIn. Oh, you're not on LinkedIn. You need to be on LinkedIn. And they don't really know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really have a purpose or a focus for their LinkedIn profile. So they throw something up there and they just leave it because they don't want to do it wrong. They don't know how to do it. They're confused by social media. They want to avoid the whole thing altogether. And so their profile is just kind of blah. It's actually hurting them more than it's helping them. So I hear a lot from people, oh, LinkedIn doesn't work. And it is not build your profile and they will come. That's not how it works. It's the same thing with websites. You could build a great website, but you have to do something with it. You have to promote it.
Right.
You have to invite people to have a conversation with you, or no, it doesn't work. You have to work it. But then you have to have a strategy and an idea of what you want LinkedIn to do for you in your career.
I love that. It's like speakers. Yeah, I've got a couple of speaker clients who've been working on getting their script just fine, but they're not out there giving the speech. And, how can you tell if it's going to work unless you're talking to the people, unless you're getting feedback, reaching out to people and say, did this work? Did it make sense? So I love strategies. I'm all about strategy. I'm going to write that down. Do something with it. So how should we best brand ourselves on LinkedIn? It is a brand thing, right?
Yes, it is. It definitely is. It is part of your brand. I mean, these days, even if you have a personal website that has great SEO, if I Google you, the first thing that's going to come up is your LinkedIn profile.
That's true.
So that is a tremendous opportunity for you to present yourself to your entry-level client. I tell the people that I work with, yes, you have all kinds of different services and functions that you can offer to people. But how do people come to you first? And you design your entire profile around that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I work with lots of financial planners, and it's such a tough, competitive world for them. And, the most recent one I worked with, his entry-level product is life insurance. Well, don't tell me about the 16 other things that you can do on your LinkedIn profile. Sure, that's great, but really speak to me about your entry-level product, and I might book an appointment with you. So
Ah,
you really want to focus it around your entry-level goods or services, and you're speaking only to that audience, because once they're in your world, of course they love you and trust you. You're no longer speaking to them with your profile.
mm-hmm. I actually think that makes a lot of sense. So you don't have to say everything that you've done. And yeah, and oh, that time that I sold seeds door to door taught me a lot about sales. Well, you know, uh, maybe it doesn't belong on the LinkedIn profile. I think
What
that's actually
people
really
want to know
interesting.
about you personally and how did you get there? They do want to know a little bit about that, but you're really speaking about that entry-level good or service.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between how you brand yourself on LinkedIn and versus Facebook?
Facebook is an interesting medium, and it's changing rapidly, but it's a lot more casual. And they say, research says that people are much more likely to make a purchasing decision on Facebook than they are on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is all about your credibility and your target audience.
Mm-hmm.
So your branding should focus on what problem do you solve?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you so special that you can solve that problem?
Uh-huh.
And you know, what results are you going to bring for me?
Okay. So telling us what we can do with LinkedIn, I get that. And Facebook is casual. I find often if I'm talking to somebody for the first time, I will check out their credibility, their business credibility on LinkedIn. I go to Facebook to see where they live. Is there something I can make a personal connection with?
Right. It's their personality. Do you vibe with them in some way?
Yeah.
And the people who are really winning LinkedIn are including some of that on LinkedIn as well. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
I am often surprised, you know, when I meet somebody for the very first time at a speaking event, and they're like, "Oh, and so you're a Green Bay Packer fan?"
Yes, yes, yes.
Or "Tell me about Conversations with Skunks. What is that about?"
Uh-huh.
So it's really shocking to me. You know, people do actually read your little profile before they come to a speaking event to see what you're all about, and maybe make a decision whether they're going to come to that event or not.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that are winning on LinkedIn are the ones that are brave enough to be authentic and be
Mm-hmm.
themselves. If you're generic on LinkedIn, forget about branding. I mean, it's like next. My favorite thing to tell my clients is whatever your freak flag is, you know, if you're a stock car racing enthusiast, whatever it is, get your freak flag up there at full mast. You know, this little, you know, I'm just going to like put a little something out there. It doesn't work. It's the people who are really loud and proud about being authentic and who they are that win
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn.
That's great. That's actually really interesting because one of the things I've often wondered about is the picture across the top of LinkedIn. And should it be branded? Should it be, I noticed that you have a nature picture. I have a picture of the lake at my Austrian office because I have large chunks of the year in the Alps. So I have a picture of the Alps. I've often wondered, oh, should I have a picture of speakers or leadership or is the lake something help? What should we do?
Well, it really depends on you. It has to be something that resonates very strongly for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I change my banners a lot. I have several different banners. Right now, I have a holiday banner.
Mm-hmm.
So it says something about Christmas and enjoying the stillness or something like that. So I encourage people to find something that really resonates with them. And a couple quick examples. I have a friend who's a copywriter, And he just took a box of number 2 lead pencils and threw them on the kitchen table and took a photograph of those. And that's what he popped in as his banner with a little bit of customization, a tagline. And people make the mental connection. Oh, of course he's a copywriter. There's the number 2 lead pencils. And we have sort of a romanticized idea about number 2 lead pencils if we're of a certain age.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And another friend of mine who was a financial planner and just having a heck of a time building his practice. And he said, Angela, I just want to work with dog owners.
Ah, okay.
And I was like, great, I can work with that. And he's like, well, I have this gentleman's dog walking club in Tiburon on Saturday mornings. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so perfect. Do you get a lot of your clients from that? And he said, yes, I do. So I said, that's the angle you're going to work. So he got his wife to take a picture of all these guys walking their dogs along the beach in Tiburon, and he put that as his banner.
And Tiburon is a high-end suburb of San Francisco. So people who are walking on the beach in Tiburon, if they live there, they've got money for him to, finances for him to plan, right?
And here's what happens when they look at his profile. Oh, there's my dog. And there's recognition. So it's instant trust and likability.
That's interesting. That's cool. And it's nothing to do about the business office. That
right.
comes below. That comes below the
yes.
banner.
Yes.
Thank you. That's really helpful. That's something that I have worried about for quite some time.
Well, sometimes, Elizabeth, it's the things we do in our off hours that people identify with.
Yeah.
So even volunteering, the things that we do for free that we're passionate about, that's how we get the emotional connection with some of our clients.
Yeah, and indeed, there's nobody who's doing something that's truly unique. It's all been done before at some point. So is creating an emotional connection that people will say, this is someone I want to hear more about. This is something I want to know about. I've been having several conversations about how do you promote yourself, and how so many women, especially in the corporate arena, they sit at their desk and they have lunch at their desk because they're going to get more and more done and, output, whatever. But it's the people who've been going to lunch with the power brokers who wind up getting promoted because they are a known quantity. And people buy what they know. So it's an emotional decision. That's really great. And so speaking of companies, you've said in the past, there's an interesting intersection between your company brand and your personal brand. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. And I think this is what a lot of people in sales get wrong to a certain degree. They don't quite hit the mark on this. They say, oh, the company brand is really strong. I'm going to live off of that. And that's great. It's wonderful to have a strong company brand and name recognition and reputation and, automatic trust and likability. But we don't buy things from glass buildings. We buy things from people. And so you need to have a strong personal brand, likability, trustability, or there really isn't a transaction. There's not a possibility. There's no opportunity there. So yes, a company brand that's strong is fantastic. It's a wonderful asset. But your best asset is your own personal brand. Do you create instant rapport? Are you somebody that I want to know? Are you somebody that I can trust and tell what my real situation is so that you can problem solve and provide a service or a product for me?
Yes, exactly. This then gets to how you focus your profile.
Yes, exactly. So it's your personal brand and where that intersects with the company's personal brand.
So I know you've done work with companies as well. how does that play out in terms of the company versus the employees, for instance?
Well, the employees they're a very integral part of the company brand.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, when I used to do posting pre-IPO for a startup in Sunnydale,
Mm-hmm.
and the posts that would always get the most attention would be the ones where there were employees.
Mm.
So they had some of the top brass had a pajama party.
Uh-huh.
And, that post went 12,000 views or something completely ridiculous. That is real and human.
Uh-huh.
And it created such a flurry, they had to hire a VA to follow up on all the people that responded to that post. So it's when we put a human face on the company and what we do, when we put real human stories and interaction onto the company, that's where magic happens.
Yeah. I always often think that people will make an emotional decision backed up by the logic. I mean, you do have to, if they say, oh, you do have to actually deliver once you've got the job. But people will first do because, I don't know, they like you somehow. They feel better. Here's another question I get sometimes. Is LinkedIn better for men than women?
Not necessarily. What I see these days is women are much more willing to take off that corporate facade and be real.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it seems to be easier for women to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But even the men who are willing to be authentic and real and sometimes raw, that's really what it takes. So I really don't see a lot of huge gender differences between success on LinkedIn. It really is about who is being real.
Okay. So I've got one other question, got another very important question, because any of us who work with LinkedIn, how do you respond to the people who say, hey, I see that you do this and this and this. You need to buy my program. You need to buy my product. So question number one is, how do you respond to the people who sell on the very first message? And secondly, how do you not be that person? How can you reach out on LinkedIn and use it for prospecting without being one of those horrible people who tries to sell you on the first conversation?
Yeah, those horrible people. The connect and pitch. Whew. Yeah, I have a lot to say about that, but I'll try to make it super simple. Anybody that generally, if somebody sends me an invitation, I look at their profile and try to suss out whether they're going to be a connect and pitch kind of person, and I won't connect with them. If I do take a chance and connect with them and they do that pitch on the very first message, within 24 hours of me connecting with them, I just simply send a message back and I say, we don't have a relationship yet. I am not going to buy anything from you, and I don't appreciate you pitching me before there's any kind of an opportunity. I'm going to disconnect with you, and I'd appreciate it if you never connect with me again.
But what if that's someone who might be a good connection?
Their behavior tells me that they probably won't. They just ruined all opportunities of ever doing business with me. I'm an introvert, and I don't appreciate it. That is just not good business practices. And, a lot of LinkedIn consultants think we're the LinkedIn police.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably go the extra step to change the way people are using LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is getting such a bad reputation from this whole connect and pitch thing.
There
That
are a
is
lot of
not
trainers
the
out
way.
there who do recommend it. So, yeah.
Oh, not me.
So, with that in mind, how can we connect? I mean, if you've got 8,000 followers on LinkedIn, you can't connect with them all. I mean, you can't have a personal relationship with them all. How can you use LinkedIn for prospecting without pitching? How do you find the gold in amongst all the sand? Let's put it that way.
Well, there's lots of different ways. I have a content strategy that's pretty specific, and there's several topics that I talk about. And on Friday afternoons, I go through all of the posting that I did during the week. And if there's any second or third connections that engaged with my content, I reach back and say, thank you so much for liking my article on blah, blah, blah. I'd love to have you in my network. Let's connect.
Okay, let me pause you there for a moment then. A content strategy, does that mean like the articles that you post, or that's not the same as the connection strategy?
It's not. The content strategy is what topics and what kind of content are you going to post on a regular basis. And it really is focused on your ideal client. What are their needs, concerns, challenges?
Mm-hmm.
And you post content that would be appealing to them. And so when they actually do interact with your content, then the connection strategy kicks in, because you want to, first of all, invite them into your network, and then stay top of mind by sending them birthday greetings, work anniversary, did they get a promotion, things like that.
That sounds like it takes a lot of time.
It doesn't. I probably spend 10 minutes to 20 minutes twice a day. And, I'm held to a different standard, so I probably do a lot more on LinkedIn than most people need to do. But most of my clients, I try to teach them how to win at LinkedIn in 10 minutes a day, or
Well,
10 minutes twice a day.
That's possible. I know. I love that. This is one of the things I love about what you teach, Angela, is why I really wanted to have you on this podcast, is because you're so sensible about it. And it does make sense on how we're going to do this and how we can really make something helpful. So if you are posting something, let me see if I've got this right. You are posting something that will reach your target audience. If somebody engages, and somebody says great or shares it, whatever, then you reach out to them, right?
Yes, I at least connect with them.
What about if they're just looking at your profile?
I reach back immediately and say, there's 600 million people on LinkedIn. If they looked at my profile, I probably came up in a search, mm-hmm. or my name came up in a conversation, or they saw me speak once upon a time and they remembered my name and now they're actually interested. So I always reach back. And if I'm not connected with them, I'll say something like, thank you for looking at my profile. Is there anything I can do to help you professionally? I'm curious what prompted your attention. Let's connect.
Uh-huh. Do people actually follow up from that?
Oh, yes. There's a lot of times that will start a conversation. Thank you so much for your webinar that you did for the Gratitude Network, or, whatever it might be. And then the conversation goes on from there.
Okay. So that's a good way of actually having a conversation, and not just yet another follower who isn't necessarily, who's just going to, the numbers of the following as opposed to the people who are truly actively engaged.
Right.
Should we have LinkedIn groups or LinkedIn business pages?
A LinkedIn business page for sure. A LinkedIn business page has an external link to your website or your company's website, whatever that might be. But company pages are really important. They kind of 10x your SEO
10
because it has
times your SEO, right?
yes, yes, because it has that internal link to your LinkedIn profile. It has an external link to the company website. And then I put 3 assets there. Like probably one of the next things that's going to go at the very top of my news feed on my company page will be this podcast, because it's one of the most recent things. And it's just one more way. It's amazing to me. I recently did a training at a Caldwell banker, and 3 people came up to me and told me what they had checked out on my LinkedIn profile. One person said, "Oh my gosh, you're a Green Bay Packer fan. I'm from Chicago."
Yeah. Yeah.
Another person said, "When is your book coming out? I'm so curious about it." And the other one said, "I listened to all 3 podcasts that are on your profile." And I'm like, "You took the time to listen to all 3 podcasts?" And she said, "Yes, they were really interesting. I listened to the first one and I had to listen to the other 2.
So does that mean that means times you've been interviewed on people's podcasts?
Yes.
You put that on your profile.
Yes.
Ah, very good. Very nice.
It's on my about section, and I have a sentence about that, and I invite people to listen.
Very good. Very good way of leveraging your publicity there.
Yeah. My assets, they're assets. Use them.
They are assets, yes. So does having a link to a podcast or a video, does that make your profile show up more?
Oh, yes. I always talk about the density of your profile. The more external links you have, the more dense your profile is, and thus the more findable to the crawlers and algorithms.
And so the machines easier for the machines to find you.
You're going to pop up before somebody who has nothing on their profile.
I love it. Okay. That just brought me to another thing. What about LinkedIn Live? Should we be sharing on LinkedIn Live?
Oh, God, yes. LinkedIn, it's really interesting the way they share content. So if you're sharing from a third-party app like Hootsuite, they rather suppress your content because they really try to penalize third-party apps. And so if you're sharing a YouTube video, they're going to suppress that because it takes you to YouTube. Now,
they want you to stay on the LinkedIn site.
It's just like Facebook. They want you to stay on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So LinkedIn Live is something that they accelerate the sharing of that and the viewability of that. So I highly recommend using LinkedIn Live if you have that feature. They're still rolling it out. Word on the street is they may take it away. So if you have it, use it while it's available.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll have to find out. So the listeners, I guess any listeners who are tuning in to the recordings will know whether it's still there or not. Then last major question, what is Conversations with Skunks about?
Conversations with Skunks is a book. Each chapter is a different outdoor extreme adventure. Some of them are a near-death experience. And the preface is I left for a week and I had somebody taking care of my kittens, and somehow my kittens befriended 2 skunks. And so the night I got home from my vacation, I'm in bed with both of my kittens and I hear crunching in their bowl. And I look over and here's the 2 baby skunks that they have invited in to live with us. And I rather freaked out. And then my tuxedo kitten goes over to the 2 skunks and she starts licking them. I'm like, you invited them in? I'm like, how does your world get like that? Seriously. And so it's all about extreme outdoor adventures that I've had through my life. Or
indoor in this case, right?
Well, yes, that one's in. Well, that's where the outdoors comes inside,
yes.
Uninvited by me. But yeah, it's just I ended up giving stitches to a friend on a Boundary Waters canoe trip. He was actually a medical student.
Oh dear. Yeah. Okay. So, and is this have to do with business, or is this just
It's
stories you needed to tell?
it's personal. Yeah, it's personal.
But it makes a great hook to have people pay attention and say, okay,
Well,
conversations with Skunks.
it's one of those personal connection things. If you're an outdoors person, it's something that you might be curious about. And it's coming out next year.
So Angela, as something we can take away, how often, if we have a decent LinkedIn profile, how often should we update?
That's a great question. I have a friend that she schedules in her calendar every 3 months to update her profile. And I really think that's a fantastic strategy because, as you know, I mean, this business climate right now, everything is changing so fast. What we do, our roles, the products that we're promoting, the services that we're promoting changes all the time. Your target audience changes all the time. So every 3 months, I think you should take a look at it and see what still resonates and what's working and switch it up.
For instance, I've been teaching presentation skills for some time now, and my ideal clients are pretty much the same people that they were 3 months ago. If you don't have any major changes, does it help your SEO results if you at least change the picture?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so even if the main information is the same, what should we change?
Sometimes people will tweak the headline. They come up with a better way to express what they do and who they serve and how they help.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the headline is a great one. And if you're looking for more visibility, if you leave your notifications on, that is a change that your entire network will be alerted that you've made a change.
Okay. So turn on notifications. All right.
If you want to, or turn them off, whatever
Yeah.
feels more comfortable to you. But yes, and I tell women especially, if you change your glasses, if you change your hairstyle, if you change your hair color, people need to be able to recognize you if they're seeing you for the first time in a coffee shop or for a meeting of some kind. If you don't look like your picture, trust is broken immediately.
Please don't use that headshot from 20 years ago. Right. That's just it. If you have wrinkles, they are your wrinkles and you've earned them.
Yep.
Yeah, yes. And so then suppose I were one of those people who feels just at sea about LinkedIn. I'm not, because I've worked with you. I've hired you for various things. So you've helped me. But suppose I were one of those people that came up to you at a cocktail shot party and said, oh, please don't look at my LinkedIn profile. Where could we start?
I would start with your profile photo,
Mm-hmm.
the banner, the headline, and your skills section. Most of the time when I work with people, their skills section is very outdated and you're being found for those words. Those are searchable terms.
Mm-hmm.
When LinkedIn was bought by Microsoft, they automatically loaded people's skills section according to what was in their profile. So Microsoft Office Suite is a very common one. And unless you're going to do pivot tables, I would recommend getting that out of there. And having it reflect what you currently do in your job. So the skills section is the very first place I would recommend somebody pay attention to so that it reflects who they are and what they're doing as a business person now.
Okay, I think this is really great. And I have to say that Angela has this wonderful 10-day LinkedIn challenge to really upgrade what you're doing with LinkedIn. Because this is being recorded and we hope it's going to be on the web and people will be listening for years and years, I think I want to make sure that people can reach you whether you're still doing the challenge or not. So what's the best way to reach out and say they found you through Speakers Who Get Results?
I would definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me an invitation and tell me that you heard this podcast. And the challenge is something that I'm offering once a month in 2020.
Okay,
And
great.
there's a link on my profile and a promotional code.
Well, I highly recommend it. It's really amazing. Angela Dunz, this has been great. Be careful of skunks coming into your house, or I hope at least you will have the good conversations with them. And
Dot is still here. I've petted her. She still lives here.
Oh, you still have a skunk living there, huh?
She's in the canyon. I see her on occasion.
Okay, all right. So not in the bedroom.
Oh, no.
No. Okay. All right. Well, Angela Dunz, author of the upcoming book, Conversations with Skunks, but most importantly, LinkedIn expert, especially if you're an introvert and you need some help getting your profile out there and really letting LinkedIn work for you. Angela Dunz, this has been great. Thank you so much for being on Speakers Who Get Results.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.
We have just concluded another great episode of Speakers Who Get Results with your host, Elizabeth Bachman. If you got value from today's episode, please feel free to share us with your friends and colleagues. You may also visit elizabethbachman.com for additional resources. Be sure to tune in every week for new episodes, and thanks for tuning in.